Alright, folks, it's time for one of my more eagerly awaited reviews. This is the last beer of this popularity I'm going to review, and that's Miller Lite because with Coors having been published, and we're really kind of out of highly popular beers. We'll do some more Bud Select 55. We'll go into we'll dive with energy into the $4 price point, which includes Natty and all that stuff. Bush, Keystone, Milwaukee's Best. We'll continue to go through that, but we're getting close to being done with the $6 price point. And Miller Lite, one of the most important beers in the history of the country, will conclude it. And maybe this is the most important beer, certainly in the last half of the 20th century. This is the most important beer. It was a truly revolutionary kind of finding of yeast, and if you look it up on Wikipedia, you can read about the guy who's evidently helped design several different types of beers, including Sam Adams. But anyway, my understanding is he developed a yeast that lasts longer, and so it converts more of the sugar and the carbs to alcohol. And so basically with light beer, you're going to brew it kind of low gravity, end up a little bit higher, because you're going to consume all useful material into alcohol, and that leaves less calories. Because in most of these light beers, you don't want a heavily high calorie beer. Do they have it on the can? What percent Miller Lite is? I don't believe they do. But anyway, it's 96 calories. And so this was not originally Miller's. I think it was named something, a couple other things before Miller bought it and made it their signature light beer. And it became by far their most successful beer, and for a while the most successful beer in America, until Bud Light took its spot. And Bud Light now being the most successful beer in the country. And so this was the first light beer. At least this was the one that's based off of the original. It's got a lot of, again, go to Wikipedia and see some of the ingredients when they analyze this. It's got a lot of sugars and things that you wouldn't normally see in a beer. And that's almost certainly to keep, to give it enough alcohol, more flavor, and to give something for the yeast to consume. And so, but this was the first of what we would call the light lagers, using kind of adjuncts and various ingredients, which has become the most popular beer style in the country, maybe the world. I don't know if it's the world, but it may be. It's tremendously popular, and no one can really argue with that. So it's hard to say how it's different than other light beers, although as I'm having it, it's not bad. It's less carbonated than Coors, and a bit more of a beer flavor than Coors. That's something that would probably be positive. I don't know about, I can't really remember Bud. But as I'm drinking, certainly quite a carbonated pop there. General hop flavor, very, again, as I describe it, beer drink. Fading very fast. Not as much of a chugging beer as, say, Coors is, but certainly you could chug this one. And I could see if this was your preference. There's a little bit of a dull note there at the end. I can't, again, I'm not sure this is the one I would drink, but it kind of gets there with a little sour note there at the end that I don't like as I'm drinking through it. Certainly nothing offensive. As you can see, I'm downing it fairly quickly. But I mean, again, there's not a whole lot of difference between Bud Light, Coors Light, and Miller Lite. I wouldn't want to live on the difference, or predict whether or not I could predict what actually is the difference. Coors, I think, is clearly the most carbonated, and probably the least tasting. That may be the most tasting of the three, but I don't know if that's a good thing because the taste really isn't that good. And again, when you're drinking a light beer, you're not really expecting that. What you're wanting is something easy to drink that's got alcohol in it, and Miller will hit the thing. I think for that very purpose, I think Coors is probably a better choice. Although again, this is more beer flavored than Coors. This has a stronger beer notes than Coors. Whether or not it certainly tastes more like your normal beer than Coors does, and probably like Bud Light does. Whether or not that's what you're wanting, I can't speculate on that. The key question is again, and we're going to dive into this. Is we've had these beers, we've had Coors, we've had Miller, we've had Bud. When we dive into the next price point, when we dive into Busch Light, Coors, not Keystone Light, Milwaukee's Best Light, Miller High Life 64, Miller High Life Light, Natural Light, and all those, that next price point down, that slightly cheaper price point, that 4 for a 6-pack instead of that 6 for a 6-pack price point, are we still going to be basically drinking carbonated beer pop? Because if we are, I don't know why you would spend the extra dollars. I haven't drank many of those, and we're going to try them. But unless they have a distinctly bad flavor, you would think you could fairly cheaply brew a beer that didn't have much flavor. It wouldn't be that tough, although again, I know that you couldn't do this at home brew because of all the many ingredients in it. And we'll also have to start looking for their alcohol content, because it's possible you could brew it cheaper and match the lack of flavor, but that you might end up with a lower gravity beer. And that's obviously a negative. I mean, it could all be malt liquor, but taste better. Speaking of which, if you listen to these, should I go into malt liquor? That so far we haven't went into the glorious world of malt liquor, but we certainly can, and we can certainly see if Coke 45 is better than Schlitz Old Malt, and what have you. But anyway, Miller Lite, not offensive. It's, again, flip a coin on which light beer you want to drink. Seriously, they're not really that different. They cost the same, and so unless if you find Keystone better, that'd be a good choice because it's cheaper. And that we think about price point on this review. That's all I got. I will talk to you next time. See ya.